So last week on the channel, we talked about the reason that the long rumored and awaited Zelda 35th anniversary games such as Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD were back in the news, and the reason why a lot of fans were expecting potentially some kind of announcement to be at the 2021 Game Awards. And in today's video, I want to make some updates around that, as there is some new source information that we need to go over, and the reason why it is looking more and more likely that we will indeed see Breath of the Wild 2 information revealed at this event. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we're just covering one story today, but it should be very exciting for all fellow Zelda fans out there like myself, as we are talking about the likelihood of some kind of Zelda announcement being featured at the Game Awards 2021, which, if you're not familiar, is coming up very quickly, as it will be held on December 9th, and we even got some new information around the event itself from Mr. Keeley, such as the fact that it is back to being a live in-person event and no longer a virtual one like we saw them do in 2020, obviously due to the pandemic, and it will be held at the Microsoft Center with live orchestras and the whole deal. And we'll talk about that live orchestra here in a second, because that could be leading us into some of this Zelda information. But the reason why everybody was talking about Zelda 35th anniversary games last week was primarily due to a tweet that was sent out by Samus Hunter, which I will say, as a quick disclaimer, I am not fully bought in on the fact that everything that Samus Hunter says is fact. Like, I definitely know she's gotten some things right that do seem hard to predict, but I also know that there's a lot of posts out there that if I just read them objectively, it sounds like somebody speculating, kind of like I'm speculating in this video, around the fact that we will probably see some Zelda announcements at something like the Game Awards. But you can also come to that conclusion just looking at history most of the time, and looking at how Nintendo likes to market their games in front of large audiences like this, and specifically Zelda has a track record around this type of thing being at a Game Awards appearance. So to start off, I will say that I'm going to kind of be making my own decision around how credible Samus Hunter's leaks are going forward, based off of the fact if we see something officially Zelda 35th anniversary related at this event. Because in case you guys forgot, what got a lot of this conversation started was her tweet from 4 days ago at the time of filming this video, which reads as follows: "The celebration for the 35th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda will continue at the Game Awards." Now, the reason why I think this is a big statement is the fact that she's specifically saying Zelda's 35th anniversary will continue. It's not saying that we're going to get new Zelda information only, which is a pretty fair statement, because you can say that the Game Awards would be a logical place for them to show off something like a new trailer for Breath of the Wild 2, which we will dive into here in a moment as far as why that's so likely, and it has to do with history. But then you have the fact that it's Zelda's 35th anniversary, and we had these long outlier tweets from different people in the gaming industry claiming that indeed Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD would come over as ports, which definitely makes sense for Nintendo to do, as there's only a few Wii U titles that haven't really been ported to the Switch at this point, such as both of those Zelda games and Xenoblade Chronicles X being like the only real first-party outlier Nintendo titles that haven't been brought over to give a second chance to sell on something like the Switch, which is obviously wildly more successful than what the Wii U was. So you have Andy Robinson saying that, you have Jeff Grubb kind of backing him up, and a lot of us are expecting like maybe this could be the time that Zelda 35th anniversary gets its true acknowledgement with something like a combo pack, and not just that Game & Watch that we got that kind of seemed thrown together at the last moment. So for me personally, when I read that tweet, my hopes were, okay, maybe Nintendo is going to throw us a curveball and actually give us these games in a combo pack that so many Zelda fans, including myself, want to have the opportunity to replay easily on the Switch. I do own a Wii U, but you know what? The controller options, everything that we have with the Switch, minus the fact that it's just even portable so you can play it anywhere, is so much infinitely better than the Wii U and having to rehook up an old console. So obviously I'm willing to pay the money again. I think a lot of other fans are as well. And then there's also that whole huge chunk of the audience who never got a chance to even play these games to begin with that want them on the Switch. So there's a lot of argument for why we should eventually see these games brought over to the Switch. Whether or not it happens at this event, that is one of the first things I want to talk about in this update, as Samus Hunter has since updated her tweet, and it definitely sounds like she is not expecting those games to be revealed here, because she specifically says the following: "I see very difficult, if not impossible, the announcement of a Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD. I don't have any information about them, and that likely means they don't have plans to market them. Also, we might get other Switch game updates / reveals like Monster Hunter if we don't get news this month." In addition, she says the following: given the follow-up to the tweet, I want to specify a couple things. I don't currently know specific details about it, but here's what it could mean. Concert dedicated to the entire series, very likely. Trailer for the sequel to Breath of the Wild, collaborations with other games. So when I read that updated tweet, it clearly sounds like it doesn't have to be tied to Zelda 35th anniversary, but like I said, for my personal track record for Samus Hunter to be continued to be proven correct, I want to see something actually acknowledging the 35th anniversary of Zelda at this event, and that is still what I'm holding out some level of hope for. And I do think that if it's anything, just to temper our expectations and not get too overhyped before we know any official information, I would expect it to be something like potentially a concert. We already know there's going to be a live orchestra there. It would be really cool to have a Zelda 35th themed video package with a live orchestra playing behind them, and then maybe we follow it up with something like a massive Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, or something like the title reveal, or even a sit down segment where they actually show and share some gameplay for Breath of the Wild 2, as we've seen them do this in the past, such as we have 2014, 2016, both featured Breath of the Wild, one of which had a gameplay sit down segment with Mr. Miyamoto and Mr. Aonuma themselves, and showed them demonstrating the game on the Wii U, when we actually thought we were getting that game sooner and it got delayed, and hopefully we don't see something like a Breath of the Wild 2 delay announcement there. But I do think that 2022 should be a pretty safe bet to see that game come to light. But then we also got in 2017, when Breath of the Wild actually won the Game of the Year award, we got, of course, the DLC featured announcement. So Nintendo likes to do Zelda things at this event. Another really big thing from a business perspective to point out is the fact that the Game Awards has absolutely blown up in the last few years. Like, they used to average about 10 million views, 11 million views. Then all of a sudden they had exponential growth and shot up to 40 million. Then we saw them go to 80 million last year, which of course is by far their all-time high. So it's like, what are we talking about this year? Are we talking about 100 million eyes on this thing potentially? Like, that's a very mainstream event at that point, and it definitely even outshines what Nintendo gets close to with their Nintendo Directs, as they don't do anywhere near those kind of numbers. So will Nintendo want to feature something like big upcoming Zelda news? I think the answer is a definitive yes, and I do think we're going to get something Zelda at this event, and new Breath of the Wild 2 information when Nintendo is trying to keep the hype building into 2022, as we know that that's their targeted year of release for the game. It makes perfect sense for them to feature it here. Another interesting fact that's happened over the history with Zelda games and their reveals is that Nintendo actually specifically avoids Nintendo Directs for putting them on the stage outside of the E3 Directs, where they sometimes do, of course, the announcement trailers, or an E3 treehouse style event where they really do a blowout on the game if it's about to be released around the corner. So it's like, it's either going to be Game Awards or E3 typically for mainline 3D Zelda announcements. And so I'm going to lean towards the fact that we will get either the trailer or a title reveal, or maybe both, or maybe a gameplay segment like something Breath of the Wild 2 I think is coming at the Game Awards. So I really wanted to share that with you guys so you can kind of be prepared for, maybe it's not the Zelda 35th games. I still personally am holding out hope that we're seeing those one day. I don't think that Jeff Grubb and that Andy Robinson are just going out on a limb for no reason, stating that Nintendo has plans to bring them. And from a business perspective, it does make sense. And they could also just be that ace up Nintendo's sleeve, that when they need to delay something, or when they go a year without a Zelda game for whatever reason, that they can just pull the trigger and release that, and it's going to be more of a buffer game while we're waiting on other projects to be finished. So it's very likely that we will still hopefully get those brought over to the Switch at some point in time, but I'm leaning more towards on the Game Awards now, with all the new information that is out there, that of course Breath of the Wild 2 and a title reveal and or gameplay trailer definitely makes the most sense to me. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video on what your expectations are for the Game Awards. Will you be watching it live? I hope you will, because December 9th is going to be here before we know it, and I would love to hear where your expectations kind of lie with everything that is now out there. And what do you think about my idea around the fact that we're probably still getting those Zelda 35th games at some point? Do you think that they're just not real at all, and that Andy Robinson and Jeff Grubb just have their information wrong? Or do you think Nintendo will indeed bring them over to the Switch at a later date and time? So at this point in the video, guys, like I mentioned, I want to hear from you on all your thoughts and opinions around Game Awards 2021 and Legend of Zelda, and how it will be featured there. So please share all your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.